rising danger. He stood alone on the cold ground of a dead alien world. The sky above him was dark and broken, with strange clouds moving slowly. No trees, no cities, no life could be seen, only rocks and old bones. He knew this place was not meant for humans. It was chosen for one reason only, to be his grave. Far away, hidden behind metal walls, powerful beings watched him. They laughed quietly, confident and calm. They had sent 20 monsters to kill him. Not soldiers, not machines, but living nightmares. The man took a deep breath and tightened his grip on his weapon. He was tired, wounded from earlier battles, and alone. Still, he did not kneel. Still, he did not beg. Then the ground began to shake. From the shadows, the first monster appeared. It was huge, with thick skin and glowing eyes. Sharp teeth clicked together as it sniffed the air. Soon another came, and another, until 20 dark shapes surrounded him. Their growls filled the empty land. The sound echoed like thunder. Anyone watching would think the fight was already over. But the man's eyes were not on the monsters. They were locked on a small cave behind them. Inside that cave was a young girl. She was silent, shaking, and trying not to cry. She was the reason he was there. The monsters moved closer, slowly, enjoying the fear. Some crawled, some jumped, some dragged their claws across the stone. Each step made the danger grow. The man's heart raced. He knew he could not fight them all at once. He knew one mistake would mean death. The first monster charged. It moved fast, faster than expected. The man rolled to the side just in time. Claws smashed into the ground where his head had been. Dust filled the air. The second monster attacked from behind. The third leaped from above. He was surrounded, trapped, and bleeding. Still, he did not run. He used the ground, the rocks, and his mind. He led one monster into another. He used noise to confuse them. He used shadows to hide his movement. The watchers began to fall silent. This was not how humans were supposed to fight. This was not how prey behaved. As the monsters grew angry and careless, the man grew focused and calm. He was no longer fighting to live. He was fighting to protect. And that made him far more dangerous than anyone expected. The first kill and the shock. The first monster screamed as it fell. Not from pain but from surprise. No one had ever heard it before. The man stood over its body, breathing hard. His hands were shaking, but his eyes were steady. Dark blood spread across the stone ground. The other monsters stopped moving for a moment. They did not understand what they were seeing. Prey was not supposed to fight back. Prey was not supposed to win. The watchers behind the metal walls leaned forward. Their smiles faded. This was not part of the plan. The man did not celebrate. He knew the fight had just begun. A second monster rushed him, faster and angrier. It opened its mouth wide, showing rows of sharp teeth. The man threw a small device onto the ground. A loud sound exploded through the air. The monster screamed and crashed into a rock. Before it could recover, the man struck again. The creature collapsed, lifeless and still. 2 monsters were dead. Fear moved through the group like a silent wave. Some monsters growled louder to hide it. Some stepped back without realizing it. The man felt pain burning through his side. Blood ran down his leg. His body was tired, screaming for rest, but his mind refused to stop. He remembered the girl in the cave, her small hands covering her mouth, her eyes wide with fear. That memory pushed him forward. The third monster attacked from above. It landed on his shoulder, crushing him to the ground. The air left his lungs. The world spun. For a second, death felt very close. Then the man reached for a sharp stone beside him. He drove it into the monster's neck. The creature screamed and fell away. It did not move again. 3 monsters were gone. Now the others hesitated. They circled him slowly. Their confidence was cracking. The man forced himself to stand. His body hurt everywhere. His vision blurred. Still, he raised his weapon. The watchers began to argue. Humans were weak. Humans were fragile. Humans were never meant to survive this. Yet here he was, bleeding, broken, and still standing. The monsters made a mistake. They attacked one by one, not together. They let anger guide them instead of instinct. That was when the man understood something important. They were not hunting him anymore. They were afraid of him, and fear made them sloppy. The man took a slow breath. If they wanted him dead, they would have to earn it. The real fight was only beginning.
The man stood in the center of the broken land. Blood covered his hands and clothes. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. The monsters circled him again. But something had changed. Their steps were slower now. Their growls were unsure. They had lost their hunger. Now they felt fear. The man felt it too. Fear was still there, deep inside him. But it no longer controlled him. He looked at the ground and saw the bodies. 3 monsters, once feared by many worlds, now silent and still. The watchers could not believe their eyes. Humans were not meant to last this long. Humans were meant to break. The man wiped blood from his face. His vision was weak, but his mind was sharp. He began to move, slow and careful. He did not wait for them to attack. He threw a piece of metal far to the left. The sound echoed across the rocks. 2 monsters rushed toward it without thinking. That was their mistake. The man ran toward the 3rd monster. Pain screamed through his legs, but he ignored it. He slid under its claws and struck upward. The creature let out a short cry, then collapsed beside the others, for were gone. The monsters roared in anger. All at once they charged. The ground shook beneath their weight. The man felt the moment coming. This was the point where he would die, or where everything would change. He activated his last device. A bright flash filled the air. The monsters screamed and stumbled, blinded and confused. The man did not stop. He moved like a shadow through the chaos, striking, dodging, disappearing. 1 monster fell, then another, then another. Each fight was close. Each second was dangerous. His body was reaching its limit. His arms felt heavy. His breath burned. He fell to one knee. A monster leaped toward him, its mouth open wide. Death was only a heartbeat away. Then a small sound reached his ears, a soft cry from the cave. The girl was watching. The man pushed himself up with everything he had left. He met the monster head-on. They crashed together, rolling across the stone. When they stopped moving, only one of them stood up. The monster was dead. Silence fell again. Only a few monsters remained now. They stepped back, shaking and unsure. The man stood tall, even though his legs trembled. He was no longer prey. He was no longer alone. He had become something else. A human who refused to fall. And the monsters finally understood. They were not hunting a man. They were facing a force they could not control. The ground was quiet again. Too quiet. The man stood among fallen bodies. His hands shook from pain and effort. Every breath felt heavy and slow. Only a few monsters remained now. They watched him from a distance. Their eyes no longer burned with hunger. They were wide with fear. For the first time, they understood something simple. This human would not stop. 1 monster took a step back, then another. Their claws scraped against the stone as they moved away. The watchers saw it clearly. The monsters were retreating. Creatures made only to kill were now afraid. The man noticed it too. He felt no joy, no pride. Only focus. He knew fear could turn into a trap. Suddenly, 1 monster screamed and charged. It was smaller, faster, and desperate. Its fear had turned into madness. The man barely raised his weapon in time. The impact threw him backward. Pain exploded through his chest. They rolled across the ground together. Dust filled the air. The monster's weight crushed him. The man felt his strength fading. His arms were weak. His body was close to giving up. The monster raised its claws for the final strike. Then a sound cut through the moment. A sharp, scared cry. The girl. The monster froze for half a second. That was enough. The man drove his weapon forward with everything he had left. The creature fell silent and still. He pushed the body away and lay on the ground, staring at the dark sky. His vision blurred. Only 2 monsters remained now. They did not attack. They turned and ran. Their heavy steps echoed as they fled into the shadows. The watchers shouted in anger. Running was not allowed. Failure was not acceptable. A shock ripped through the air. One monster collapsed instantly, its body lifeless before it hit the ground. The last monster stopped. It looked back at the man, at the bodies, at the cave. Then it ran faster than before, disappearing into the dark land. The man forced himself to sit up. His body screamed in pain, but his eyes searched for the cave. Slowly, a small shape appeared. The girl stepped out, shaking, her face covered in dirt and tears. The man tried to stand and failed. He smiled weakly instead. The girl took a few careful steps closer. She did not speak. She only looked at him with wide eyes, for the first time since the fight began. The man allowed himself to rest. The monsters were gone. But the hardest moment was still ahead. Because saving her life was one thing. Facing what came after would be.
The man did not return to the battlefield again, but the battlefield followed him everywhere. On distant worlds, leaders spoke his name in quiet rooms. They replayed the footage again and again. A single human standing while monsters fell. Some tried to explain it with strength. Some blamed luck. Some said the monsters were weak. Deep inside, they all knew the truth. It was not strength that scared them. It was choice. The man had chosen to stay, chosen to fight, chosen to protect someone smaller than himself. That choice changed everything. New rules appeared across the galaxy. Human ships were no longer stopped for fun. Human colonies were no longer tested for weakness. Where humans walked, others stepped carefully. The man returned home quietly. No parade, no loud cheers. He preferred silence. At night, he still woke from dreams. Claws reaching, teeth closing, the sound of monsters breaking. But now there was another dream too. A cave opening to light. A small girl stepping into safety. A mother holding her child and saying thank you. Those memories balanced the pain. One evening, the man sat alone and watched the sky. Stars moved slowly above him, peaceful and distant. A message arrived. It was short and simple. A drawing appeared on the screen. A stick-figure man, a small girl holding his hand, and 20 dark shapes lying on the ground. Below it were 2 words, "Thank you." The man stared at the message for a long time. His chest felt tight, not from pain, but from something warm and heavy. He saved the image, then turned the screen off. Far away, others prepared for war. Not against humans, but against the idea that humans were weak. That idea was dead now. Stories spread faster than fleets, told in bars, schools, and training halls. Always the same lesson. Never corner a human. Never take what a human protects. Because when humans stand for someone else, they do not stop. The man did not know any of this. He did not see the fear he caused, or the respect he earned. He only knew one thing. If the moment came again, if the choice returned, he would stand, he would fight, he would protect. Not because he was fearless, but because that was what being human meant. And across the stars, that truth echoed, quiet, steady, and unbreakable. The rescue ship landed with a low, heavy sound. Dust and smoke filled the air. The man tried to stand when he heard it, but his legs failed him. Pain rushed through his body like fire. The girl turned at the sound. Her fear slowly changed into hope. She ran toward the ship, calling out. The door opened. A woman rushed out, her face pale and shaking. It was the girl's mother. When she saw her child alive, she fell to her knees. Her hands covered her face as she cried. The girl ran into her arms. They held each other tightly. as if letting go would make the world break again. The man watched from the ground. He felt relief for the first time. The mission was over. Then the woman looked up and saw him. She froze. Her eyes moved from the fallen monsters to his broken body, to the blood on his clothes, to the pain on his face. She stood slowly and walked toward him, each step careful and unsure. When she reached him, her voice failed her. Tears fell freely. She bowed her head and whispered thank you, again and again. Her words shook as if they came from deep inside her chest. The man tried to speak, but nothing came out. He had faced monsters without fear. He had stood against death again and again. But this was different. Her gratitude weighed more than any wound. She took his hands in hers. They were warm, soft, and human, so different from the cold ground and sharp claws. She told him he saved everything she had left. She told him her life belonged to him now. That was when his strength finally left him. His hands trembled. His chest tightened. Tears filled his eyes without warning. He turned his face away, ashamed. He did not want her to see him break. For so long he had been strong. For so long he had carried pain in silence. Now her simple words had opened something deep inside him. The girl stepped closer and gently touched his arm. Her small voice said, "Thank you too." That was too much. The man's shoulders shook. He covered his face. The world faded around him. He was not crying from pain. He was crying because the fight was finally over. The rescue team reached him moments later, lifting him carefully, wrapping him in light and warmth. As the ship doors closed, the man looked one last time at the mother and child, safe together, and he knew every wound, every fear, every monster had been worth it. The man woke up to soft light and quiet sounds. For a moment, he did not know where he was. His body felt heavy. Every breath reminded him of pain. But it was a clean pain, not the sharp kind. He was alive. The room around him was small and calm. Metal walls, gentle lights, and steady beeping sounds. A medical room aboard the rescue ship. He tried to move. Strong hands stopped him. A medic told him to rest. His body had been pushed too far. Bones cracked, muscles torn, blood lost. The man closed his eyes again. Images filled his mind. Claws, teeth, screams, and the small girl standing in the cave. Days passed. When he could finally sit up, the door opened. The girl stepped inside, holding her mother's hand. They smiled when they saw him awake. Real smiles, warm and bright. The girl ran forward and hugged him gently, careful not to hurt him. Her mother followed and bowed her head. She did not cry this time. Her voice was steady. She told him the monsters were being studied. The Watchers were under investigation. What happened on that planet could not be hidden anymore. The story spread fast. Across stations, worlds, and systems. 1 human, 20 monsters. People argued at first. Some said it was impossible. Some said it was a lie. Then the recordings were released. Silence followed. Humans watched their own kind stand alone and refuse to fall. Other species watched with growing fear. They had believed humans were weak, too emotional, too soft. They were wrong. The man did not see himself as a hero. He did not ask for rewards or praise. He only asked one question. Was the girl safe? When he was told yes, that was enough. Later, as the ship traveled home, he stood by a window, looking at the stars. He knew something had changed, not just for him, but for everyone. Humanity had been tested, pushed into a corner, forced to fight not for power, but for life. And humanity had answered, not with cruelty, not with hate, but with stubborn courage. The kind that stands up when it should be broken. The kind that protects when running would be easier. Far across the galaxy, plans were being rewritten. Humans were no longer listed as prey, or tools, or entertainment. They were listed as something else. A warning. The man touched the glass softly. He did not smile. He did not boast. He simply stood there, a quiet reminder that when humanity chooses to protect, no monster is ever enough.